Double bag alert, double bag alert, double bag alert, double bag alert, folks. That's right. We got a loaded episode. Now, this is a rarity during the season because most of the times we don't get no bag alerts. Most of the times it's trades or somebody gets cut or something crazy happens. But to get a double bag alert during the middle of the season is actually pretty cool. What we're going to talk about, all right? So Aidan Hutchinson and Marcus Jones get paid. Chris Grier parts with the Dolphins. Vikings and Chargers recap. Packers and Steelers recap. Trades. LSU fires Brian Kelly and Commanders and Chiefs recap, okay? All of this and more on the 96 episode of the Football Junkies podcast, okay? I am your host with the most, all right? I am your chief bag roll downers. That's right, chief, head of the table. Anything and everything related to the bag, rumors to the bag, and more. I am your hopium dealer. All the hopium that you need, I am the person that you go to, all right? But I am your GM who currently is not on a team right now. But don't you worry about it, all right? Don't you worry about it because guess what? I am all these things and more. But most importantly, the most important thing that you must remember is I am your host, Kale. Buckle up. It's going to get crazy. So guess what? On 3, 1, 2, 3, let's lock in. All right, folks, let's get into the meat and potatoes of everything that is going on in the league right now. So, we got a double bag alert during the regular season. I know I said it multiple times, but you guys don't understand how rare this is, all right? So, let's just get into it. So, Aidan Hutchinson, pass rusher for the Lions, inks a 4-year, $180 million deal, $141 million guaranteed, and he'll be making $45 million a year. Now, when we look at his stats from this season so far, 16 tackles and 6 sacks. Now, when we look at the 2024 season, he had 19 tackles and 7.5 sacks. A really good deal for a really productive player. Let's be honest here, folks. Aidan Hutchinson was going to get paid. It's just a matter of when he was going to get paid and how much he was going to get paid. Was it going to be top 5? Was it going to be top 10? Was it going to reset the market? Those were just the questions that we were just asking with this situation because we all know that the Lions were not going to let Aidan Hutchinson just walk. Now, with that being said, we have to have a broader conversation with him getting paid now because now this is going to have a trickle effect on both Will Anderson and Trayvon Walker. And mind you, Trayvon Walker was in the same draft class as Aidan Hutchinson. So according to Spotrac, Trayvon Walker's market value is 4 years, $72.3 million, which is $18.1 million a year. Will Anderson's market value is 3 years, $103.2 million, which is $34.4 million a year. Now I will say this, if you're the Jaguars, you do have some leverage. And I think you have to be honest with Trayvon Walker. And you just have to say, hey, listen, you are not on that level. You are not in that same conversation as a TJ Watt or a Myles Garrett or a Max Crosby. And that's perfectly fine. Because let's be real here. Josh Allen Hines is the real productive pass rusher out of the two. So in some ways, you could just say, hey, listen, we're not going over this limit. And you just have to be honest. And I understand that, listen, you're trying to maximize the amount of money that you're trying to get, but at the same time, you have to be honest with yourself. Aidan Hutchinson has been one of the better pass rushers since coming into the league. And mind you, he is doing this without a number 2. The only notable number 2 that Aidan Hutchinson had was Darius Smith. But when we talk about the Texans situation, it's a little bit more complicated because pretty soon you're also going to have to pay CJ Stroud. So the question is, who's going to get the big money first? Is it going to be Stroud or is it going to be Anderson? Me personally, I'm giving all money to Will Anderson. I understand that CJ Stroud is the quarterback. I understand that you cannot win in this league without the quarterback. But you also can't win without Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson. And we just saw that against the Seahawks last week. That offense was very stagnant. It wasn't consistent, and they wasn't able to at least put points on the board. They had to get help from the defense. So at some point, if you're the Texans, you may have to talk to CJ Stroud and say, hey, listen, dog, you're going to have to take less because we're paying Will Anderson while at the same time surrounding you with great talent. Because let's be real here, folks, and we're probably going to talk about it during gut check time. That'll probably be the next episode because if I'm not mistaken, the trade deadline is Tuesday. So yeah, gut check time. Just stay tuned for that. But back to this conversation. If we're being real here, the Texans offensively is in shambles. The offensive line is not good. The running game is non-existent. Outside of Tank Dell, who else can you say is reliable? You have all of these receivers, but if we're being real here, none of them have really shown anything. Sure, Jalen Noel has, had his flashes and, this person and that person, but let's be real here. You guys aren't putting points on the board. It's the defense that's keeping you in games and actually winning you games. So you have to pay Will Anderson. I'm sorry, you cannot allow somebody that great of a talent to just walk. You have to find a way to pay him. But with that being said, let's talk about the other bag alert, and that is Marcus Jones, cornerback for the Patriots, inks a 3-year, $36 million deal. He'll be making $12 million a year. Now, when we look at his stats from this season so far, 36 tackles, 1 sack, 2 picks, and then from the previous season, 58 tackles, 1 pick. A good team-friendly deal for a really productive player who not only plays corner, but is also really good in the kick return game. That's all you got to do sometimes. Get a good contract that is team-friendly, that's not going to break the bank for a really productive player. You don't always have to give them cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs type of money. $12 million a year, that's actually really good for someone like Marcus Jones. I'm just going to be honest here. But let's talk about one of the stories that everybody has been talking about. That is Chris Grier is out from Miami. That's right, folks. Former NFL GM Chris Grier has decided to, quote-unquote, part ways from the Dolphins. So this is what Stephen Ross had to say, and I quote, "This morning I made a decision along with General Manager Chris Grier to mutually part ways. I have incredible respect for Chris and his family, and I want to thank him for his many contributions to the Miami Dolphins over the past 26 years. As I assessed the state of the team and in my discussions with Chris, it became clear to the both of us that change could not wait. We must improve in 2025, 2026, and beyond, and it needs to start right now. Champ Kelly will serve as our interim general manager effective immediately, and we will begin our search process for a new general manager. I want to thank Champ for stepping up in his commitment to the Dolphins' success this season. There is a lot of football left to play, and we all need to fight even harder. I've always been and remain committed to building a winning team that consistently competes for championships. I'm incredibly proud of our leadership as an NFL organization and our continued commitment to the community. But our performance on the field and our team building process have not been good enough. There are no excuses. I want to thank the fans for their continued support and passion for this team. You deserve a championship caliber team you can be proud of. There is much work ahead to return the Dolphins to sustained success, and that work begins now. Finishing the season strong, evaluating all areas of our football operation, and moving forward with a clear vision for the future," end quote. Now, with that being said, Adam Schefter came out and said that Mike McDaniel will stay the head coach for the remainder of the season, and I quote, "at least," end quote. Now, here's a few notable moves that Chris Grier has made within the last few years. So he's signed Teron Armstead and Raheem Mostert. He drafted Tua, Jalen Waddle, Xavier Howard, Jalen Phillips, Christian Wilkins, Devon Achane. He traded for Tyreek Hill, Bradley Chubb, and Jalen Ramsey. So let's be real here, folks. This was bound to happen at some point. We knew that at some point, somebody was going to get fired. It was just a matter of, was it going to be Mike McDaniel or Chris Grier? And honestly, yes, Chris Grier got fired, but it doesn't solve the bigger issue. And that is, this team is still in shambles. The roster as a whole is incomplete. Not to mention the secondary outside of Minka Fitzpatrick is deplorable. So let's call it for what it is. Chris Grier cannot build an NFL roster. He has tried to take the easy pass route and trying to sign a whole bunch of notable veterans thinking that that's going to get the job done, when in actuality, it doesn't work like that. You can't just make a trade for Bradley Chubb and Jalen Ramsey and Tyreek Hill and sign Teron Armstead in free agency and think, oh, okay, this is a really good team. No, it doesn't work like that. And then the nail in the coffin was you gave Tua this crazy deal that, let's be honest here, he didn't deserve that deal. You gave him a 4-year, $212.4 million deal. He'll be making $53.1 million a year, a $42 million signing bonus, $93.1 million guaranteed at signing, and $167.1 million in total guarantees. That was a bad contract. And I said it the minute that they gave him that contract. It was going to backfire. And now by having this contract, guess what? You really can't get rid of him without taking on significant dead cap hits. So now either A, the next GM and head coach has to deal with Tua, or you're going to have to take on a boatload of dead cap just so you can get under that contract. Because right now your books are bad. You don't have a lot of draft capital. You don't even really have a lot of players on your team that you can say, hey, there's potential with this person, this person, this person. Instead, it's a lot of question marks. So now, most likely, this rebuild is going to be a hard rebuild, and it's probably going to last for maybe about 3 years. See, here's the thing, okay? And this is just my interpretation of the position. I could be completely wrong, okay? As a GM, you are the architect for the organization, okay? You have a blueprint on how you want to build your roster. And a lot of times, you have to go through trial and error, and sometimes it takes a little bit longer than others, okay? Every GM is different, okay? Some of them, they have a eye for, for player personnel. Some of them are really good with contracts. Some of them are good with drafting. It just all depends, okay? You're wearing multiple hats. I get that. But at the same time, if you don't invest the right resources into your structure, it's going to fall. And that's exactly what happened with the Dolphins. They invested cheap, and I mean exactly what I say, cheap resources into this team, and now you're still not seeing the fruits of your labor. Because now you're in a situation where most likely, guess what? Jalen Phillips is going to be gone. Matthew Judon is going to be gone. Jalen Waddle might be gone. So at some point, you have to point the finger at yourself. I understand that everybody wants to blame Mike McDaniel. I get that. But at the same time, we cannot absolve Chris Grier of criticism. Because you are making these moves. You are drafting these players. You are making these trades. And let's be real here. You have not done a really good job within the last 5 years. Now, I understand, depending on who you talk to and whatnot, there are some Dolphins fans that'll say, oh, we should have drafted Justin Herbert, or, oh, we should have drafted this person or that person. Listen, what's done is done at this point. The fact of the matter is, there's going to be a difficult cleanup that is going to have to happen. But with that difficult cleanup, there is opportunities. Right now, the trade deadline is on Tuesday. You know that you have multiple players on your team that could garner second, third, and fourth round picks. You trade away Jalen Waddle. You trade away Devon Achane. You trade away Jalen Phillips. You trade away any and everybody that people are interested in, because why? You need to make this team cheap. You need to clean your books. And you need to at least build out one side of the ball. If you can at least accomplish that part, everything else will fall into place. But what you can't do is just say, you know what, we're just going to keep our players. We're not going to make any moves. No. You need to fully assess what you have on this roster. For all we know, you could have some hidden gems on both offense and defense, and you won't even know it. You got to trade away Jalen Waddle, Jalen Phillips, maybe even Chop Robinson at this point, Devon Achane, stock up on those second, third, and fourth round picks. And, at this point, you may have to take a quarterback next year. I'm just going to be completely honest here because, listen, you know that this contract is bad. And you know most likely you can't move off of this contract for possibly 2 years. Actually, you know what? According to SpotRack, his dead cap this year is $137.8 million. Next year, it's $99.2 million. The year after that, it's $31.8 million. So he has an out in 27. So the question is, do you restructure his deal now so that you can create some cap space just for 26 so that you could possibly at least have a little bit of leeway maybe in free agency. I don't know. Because right now you're stuck with Tua. And you might be stuck with Mike McDaniels. So you got to make it work at least. So Carson Wentz, 27 attempts for 15 completions, 144 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, 5.3 yards per attempt, and a 55.6 completion percentage. Max Brosberg, 4 attempts for 3 completions, 13 passing yards, 3.3 yards per attempt, and a 75% completion percentage. Xavier Scott, 2 attempts for 16 rushing yards, 8 rushing yards per carry, and 1 rush of 10 plus yards or more. Justin Jefferson, 11 targets for 7 receptions, 74 receiving yards, and 10.6 receiving yards per reception. Justin Herbert, 25 attempts for 18 completions, 227 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick, 9.1 yards per attempt, and a 72% completion percentage. Kamani Vidal, 23 attempts for 117 rushing yards, 5.1 rushing yards per carry, 1 touchdown, and 3 rushes of 10 plus yards or more. Ladd McConkey, 10 targets for 6 receptions, 88 receiving yards, 1 touchdown, and 14.7 receiving yards per reception. So here's a few junkie nuggets. So against the Vikings blitz, Justin Herbert finished 13 of 15 for 162 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 pick. That's the 4th most passing yards against the blitz in a game in his career. So a couple takeaways from this game, all right? For starters, protect Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert is getting hit way too much for me, and it's starting to give Andrew Luck vibes. I'm just being honest here. I understand that they lost Rashawn Slater early in the season. I understand that they're trying to make do with what they have, but you have to scheme up something that's going to protect Justin Herbert. Sure, he's big and strong, but guess what? Those hits add up as his career ages, all right? Are we starting to see a resurgence in the fullback position? Because I'm seeing a lot of teams starting to use fullbacks. I know the Cowboys use them. We all know the Ravens and the 49ers use them. But I'm starting to see other teams start to incorporate fullback. And I'm actually starting to like that, you know. Next thing you know, you're going to have the fullbacks with the big neck rolls and whatnot. That probably just showed you how old I am. But don't worry about that, all right? Jonathan Grenard was productive on both sides. I mean, you're talking about somebody that was making plays on the left and the right. It didn't matter if he was facing Joe Alt. It didn't matter if he was facing a tight end. He was making plays. And that's actually really good and very promising if you're the Vikings, because pairing him with Dallas Turner, I think that's a good combination. Now, is that going to replace Danielle Hunter? No. But I think that's probably the second. Well, I wouldn't say second. I would say that's the closest thing to a replacement, all right? Brian Flores was disguising a lot of his blitzes, which, I mean, that's his MO. He's always been somebody that disguises blitzes. He actually does a pretty good job at it. It's just when you go up against a team like the Chargers, who primarily run the ball and do it at a really effective rate, there's nothing that you can really do, honestly. And the Chargers were controlling the line of scrimmage and the time of possession game, which we're going to be talking about in just a moment. The Vikings offense didn't have an answer for the Chargers blitzing, and the Vikings defense didn't have an answer to the Chargers run game, which is true. Let's be real here, folks. As long as the Chargers were winning the line of scrimmage and time of possession game, the Vikings didn't have a chance. According to team rankings, the Chargers are second in the league when it comes to time of possession at 33 minutes. Now, if you break that down within the last 3 games, their time of possession was 35 minutes and 56 seconds. Now, if you break this down by home and away, their time of possession at home is 36 minutes compared to away at 29 minutes and 58 seconds. What is the one thing that Jim Harbaugh always emphasizes with his offense? Running the ball effectively. And that's exactly what they did the entire time. And it got to a point where the Vikings didn't have an answer for it. They were trying to blitz. They were trying to load up the box. They were trying to do different things that are actually working. It never worked because why? Vidal was cooking. Justin Herbert was extending the plays just to get that first down. And they were controlling the time of possession. Let's be real here, folks. If you are a team, case in point the Steelers, right, who don't have a lot of talent on their team, you want to play the time of possession game because why? For starters, it keeps the defense off the field, which keeps them fresh, while at the same time you're controlling the clock and you're disrupting whatever rhythm that the opposing offense has. But if you just continue to just, go forth and out, then guess what's going to happen? Your defense is going to be gassed, and the opposing offense is going to pick up right where they left off. When we look at the top 10 teams for time of possession, Buffalo is number 1 at 33 minutes and 14 seconds. Of course, the Chargers, we just talked about them. Kansas City at 32 minutes and 30 seconds. Houston, 32 minutes, 25 seconds. Detroit, 31 minutes, 48 seconds. Carolina, 31 minutes, 47 seconds. Arizona, 31 minutes, 40 seconds. New England, 31 minutes and 34 seconds. Jacksonville, 31 minutes and 5 seconds. And Chicago, 31 minutes. Now, what is the one similarity out of all of those teams? They all have a pretty good run game. And with that run game, they use it to soften up the defense to the point where then they can start attacking them in the pass game. It's sort of like a jab, right? Boxers use the jab to soften up their opponent. And over time, as they soften up their opponent, now all they got to do is get one good punch in and they win. And that's exactly what you can do with football. If you control the line of scrimmage, if you control the time of possession, you are able to dictate how you want this game to end. But if you just keep on scoring super quickly, guess what's going to happen? Your defense is going to get gassed, and that's going to allow the opposing offense to beat on them for the next 20 or 30 plus minutes, and they won't have an answer to it. And the next thing you know, you're trying to figure out, hey, how the hell did we lose the game? Well, because you didn't control the time of possession game nor the line of scrimmage game. But when we talk about the Vikings, however, there's only so much that you can do, right? Carson Wentz is playing with a messed up arm. The Chargers have been controlling a majority of the game. And on top of that, their defense has been beating you in every single chance they get. They were collapsing the pocket. They were creating pressure on Carson Wentz. They were doing all the things that they planned on doing to Carson Wentz. And the Vikings didn't have an answer for it because there is no answer for it. The Chargers were capitalizing off of turnovers. They were capitalizing on trying to limit the run game. And most importantly, they were trying to make Justin Jefferson a non-factor in this game. And it worked. So there's only so much that you can do. Now, when we look at the Vikings defense, however, at some point you probably got to wonder like, hey, maybe we should stop blitzing. Maybe we should start doing something different because this just isn't working. Kamani Vidal had a career game against this Vikings defense. The Viking defense, however, that everyone was saying should be a top 5 or top 10 defense. I mean, they just added Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave during free agency. You kept Byron Murphy. So everyone is thinking, oh, this is going to be the same defense that we saw last year. No. The Chargers exposed them. And there's only so much that you can do. And on top of that, I knew I was forgetting something. The Chargers were using their fullback in such a beautiful way to the point where, guess what? Kamani Vidal had open lanes every chance that he got the ball. There's only so much that you can do. That's why the Ravens and the 49ers keep their fullback, because not only can you use them as a receiving option, but you can also use them in a blocking option as well. But let's keep this train moving, all right? So let's talk about the Packers and Steelers game. So Jordan Love, 37 attempts for 29 completions, 360 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 9.7 yards per attempt, and a 78.4 completion percentage. Emmanuel Wilson, 11 attempts for 61 rushing yards, 5.5 rushing yards per carry, and 2 rushes of 10 plus yards or more. Tucker Kraft, 9 targets for 7 receptions, 143 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns, and 20.4 receiving yards per reception. Aaron Rodgers, 36 attempts for 24 completions, 219 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 6.1 yards per attempt, and a 66.7 completion percentage. Jaylen Warren, 13 attempts for 62 rushing yards, 4.8 rushing yards per carry, and 1 rush of 10 plus yards or more. Roman Wilson, 5 targets for 4 receptions, 74 receiving yards, 1 touchdown, and 18.5 receiving yards per reception. So here's a few junkie nuggets. Jordan Love completed 20 straight completions with a 0.1 chance of completing all 20 passes based on individual completion probabilities. Now against the blitz, Jordan Love completed 12 of 17 passes for 211 yards and 3 touchdowns, the third most yards against the blitz by a quarterback this season. When lined up as a wide corner, Jalen Ramsey has allowed 2 yards per coverage, which is the 4th most in the NFL. When lined up as a slot corner, Jalen Ramsey has allowed 1.1 yards per coverage. The Steelers' defense has used single high safety on 66% of their dropbacks, the 2nd highest rate in the NFL. When using single high coverage, the Steelers have allowed a league high 1,093 yards. When facing single high coverage, Jordan Love has averaged the 5th most yards per attempt, 8.3 yards, while completing 64% of his passes, which, if you want to break that down, that's actually above the league average, which is 63.3%. So a couple takeaways from this game. For starters, the Steelers can't cover tight ends. I've never seen a Steelers defense that is this bad against tight ends. Now, usually if it's just one specific tight end, I can understand. But there is a track record that shows that they are not good when they face tight ends. Here are some stats, okay? Because I compiled all the stats from all their matchups from week 1 up till now. So week 1, when they faced the Jets, Mason Taylor, 1 target for 1 reception, 20 receiving yards per reception. Okay, cool. Week 2, the Seahawks, Elijah Arroyo, 3 targets for 2 receptions, 31 receiving yards, 15.5 receiving yards per reception. A.J. Barner, 3 targets for 2 receptions, 26 receiving yards, 1 touchdown, and 13 receiving yards per reception. Week 3, the Patriots, Hunter Henry, 11 targets for 8 receptions, 90 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns, and 11.3 receiving yards per reception. Austin Hooper, 3 targets for 2 receptions, 28 receiving yards, and 14 receiving yards per reception. Week 4, the Vikings, T.J. Hutchinson, 5 targets for 4 receptions, 39 receiving yards, and 9.8 receiving yards per reception. Week 6, the Browns, Harold Fannin Jr., 10 targets for 7 receptions, 81 receiving yards, 11.6 receiving yards per reception. David Njoku, 6 targets for 3 receptions, 28 receiving yards, and 9.3 receiving yards per reception. Week 7, the Bengals, Noah Fant, 4 targets for 4 receptions, 44 receiving yards, 1 touchdown, and 11 receiving yards per reception. Week 8, the Packers, Tucker Kraft, 9 targets for 7 receptions, 143 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns, and 20.4 receiving yards per reception. Here is a stat that I found this morning. Despite only playing 5 of 6 games, Nick Herbert leads the Steelers in pressures at 26, sacks, 4.5 sacks, and quick pressures at 12. I'm going to read that stat to you one more time. Despite only playing 5 of 6 games, Nick Herbert leads the Steelers in pressures, sacks, and quick pressures. At some point, you have to start giving people a chance. That is the only way that you're going to be able to be successful while at the same time allow your other players to eat. Look at the Giants. There are stats that literally prove that when Abdul Carter, Brian Burns, and Kayvon Thibodeau are all on the field at the same time, they are more successful of getting after the quarterback than without all 3 of them, or at least 2 of the 3. So why in the world wouldn't you want to put Nick Herbert in this game? You have to start giving him more snaps. Because TJ Watt doesn't need to continue to have 70 and 80 snaps a season. It's just going to burn him out. But we're going to save that for a moment. Stop blitzing Jordan Love. I don't understand why they were blitzing him so much, but you saw that every time that you guys blitzed him, he was killing you for it. Every single time you send a 4-man rush or 5-man rush, guess what's going to happen? Zoink, touchdown. Zoink, 20-plus yards. Zoink, 30-plus yards. And you had no answer for it, even though you could have made that adjustment. Zach Tom played well against TJ Watt. Let's be real here, folks. Zach Tom had TJ Watt's number the entire game. There's nothing that you can do about it. Zach Tom is a good right tackle. There's a reason why the Packers paid him what they paid him. It's not because he just had one good season, but no, he's a really good tackle. The Packers' run game was non-existent, which, I mean, the Steelers did a good job with that. Okay, cool. But at what cost? And most importantly, there was poor tackling and execution from Pittsburgh. So let's just get Pittsburgh out the way so then we can talk about the Packers, okay? In all my years of watching the Steelers and rooting for the Steelers, I have seen some pretty bad secondaries. But you want to know something about those secondaries? They gave effort. They fought as hard as they possibly can to do the routine things. And if you can't do the routine things, then you need to go somewhere else. And this isn't directly towards Darius Slay, but it's towards everybody else that didn't do their job. You have to do the routine things. If you don't do the routine things, you will not be successful. Darius Slay, if you didn't want to play for the Steelers, you never should have put pen to paper on that contract. I don't understand why you're making a business decision and just bailing out instead of trying to make a tackle. If you didn't want to play, you never should have played. Simple as that. And the fact that we have people who really haven't said anything about this. But when George Pickens, when he was showing little to no effort against the Colts that one time, everybody was saying, well, George Pickens has to go. That is an embarrassment as a player. That's an embarrassment as a teammate. You should never want to see that on tape. Are you scared of Slay? Is that what it is? Because I'll be the person to say it because I really don't care. But what you cannot do is just step to the side because you don't want no contact. If you don't want no contact, then you need to be on a beach somewhere with your phone in your hand. But you need to put out effort. I don't see effort in this defense. I don't see a defense of players who actually want to commit to actually making plays. You know what I see? I see a bunch of guys that put on the same uniform and say, you know what? You do your thing, I'm going to do my thing. That's it, that's all. And it also doesn't help that you have a whole bunch of media people and podcasters like the Steel Hero podcast who want to talk about, fuck Mike Tomlin, man. Mike Tomlin got to go. Mike Tomlin is trash. Mike Tomlin is ass. But they don't give legitimate reasons on why they believe that. I don't understand why people just continue to go through this cycle of, yay, Mike Tomlin, the Steelers, we're going to go to the Super Bowl. And then, oh my God, the Steelers aren't going to go anywhere. All hope is lost. What are we going to do now? Mike Tomlin must go. He must atone for his sins. No! The fact of the matter is, there's only so much that you can do when you don't have the right personnel. You cannot get an old Darius Slay and an old Jalen Ramsey and have them to play a style of ball that they have not played in over 5 years. Darius Slay cannot play press man coverage anymore. Sure, he can maybe do it in bouts, but to do that the entire game, no, he cannot do that. The last time he was able to do that was probably when he was in Detroit. And the same thing with Jalen Ramsey. Jalen Ramsey cannot do that no more. The last time that he could do it successfully was when he was in Jacksonville. So why do you continue to play this stupid single high bullcrap when you know that teams are beating you over the head with it? I literally just read the stat that literally just said, when using single high coverage, the Steelers have allowed a league high of 1,093 yards. You mean to tell me the highest paid defense, a defense that accumulated of over $163 million, can't even make no plays, can't even be consistent. A defense that only works when they're making splash. That's unacceptable. And the fact that we continue to hear the same problems year after year after year is also bothering me a lot. Because all I keep on hearing is lack of communication, execution. Lack of communication, execution. At some point, either you got to nip this thing in the bud or somebody got to go. And I normally don't call for people's jobs, but somebody got to go because something is not working. Y'all blame Cam Sutton. Y'all blame Minka Fitzpatrick. So who in the world is the problem? Is it the coach? Is it the players? Who is it? Because in actuality, you can't just put this all on the players. No, you got to put this on the coaches as well. Because the coaches create the game plan when going up against these type of teams. And you know when you're going up against a Jordan Love, a Patrick Mahomes, a Jared Goff, when you go up against those top tier quarterbacks, they're going to play mistake-free football for the majority of the game. So don't just play a defense to where, okay, maybe if we luck up, maybe if we get a deflected pass or something, maybe we can get an interception. No, just play defense. Just do your damn job. That's all you have to do. It's not hard. But we continue to see the same rhetoric year after year after year, and it's not working. And at some point, somebody has to address the elephant in the room. Maybe it is time for Mike Tomlin to go. And I only say that because at some point, situations run their course. We saw that with the Eagles and Andy Reid. I understand that I keep on going to that, but that's the only example that I can think of that is the most successful. Andy Reid and the Eagles, they were like peanut butter and jelly. Super successful, always competitive, always in the NFC Championship. But they reached their ceiling, and that's fine. And so they went their separate ways. And guess what happened? Andy Reid was a part of a dynasty, and the Eagles got 2 Super Bowls. Who's complaining? Nobody. So at some point, we have to start having an honest conversation about the direction of the Steelers because we're not going anywhere. We're just continuing to go in the same circle year after year after year. And Mike Tomlin continues to go after these old-ass players because he values their pedigree and their accomplishments. And a lot of these players whooped his team's ass. No, that's not what you do, because guess what? Those players were used in a different way to what they're being used now. So if you're thinking you're going to get the same production or even more than what their previous teams got out of them, you're sadly mistaken. I'm sorry. This isn't working. You have to do something different. You have to be more innovative in your execution and your play calling and your scheme. You have to do something different. But nobody is willing to make changes. Nobody is open enough to say, you know what? I'll make a sacrifice. I'll do something that I'm not comfortable doing if it means that we have a better chance of winning. All you have is just people who are just complacent. I remember TJ Watt saying, hey, I'm willing to play on different sides. I still haven't seen that. I still see him lined up the same way. And guess what? You get the same result. But this is what separates the Steelers now from the Steelers back then. I'm not even talking about the 80s and 70s and 60s. I'm talking about the early 2000s. Those teams are close. Till this day, they play hard for one another. They encourage one another. They held one another to a certain standard. There was an aura for the Pittsburgh Steelers in the early 2000s. When you had the Steelers on your schedule, just know you're going to face a team that's going to be physical, that's going to run the ball down your throat, and most importantly, they are going to whoop your ass. But instead, all we see now is all talk, no bite. All you see is a bunch of social media clips and a whole bunch of renegade and haven't made it, they found you. Whole bunch of people waving their terrible towels and a bunch of players that don't have no order, that don't have no structure. A bunch of players who just play for themselves. And that's not what the Pittsburgh Steelers are known for. That's not the standard. But year after year, they continue to not meet that standard. And the owner is okay with it. And the front office is okay with it. And Mike Tomlin is okay with it. Honestly speaking, I feel like the Steelers offensively just need to take a page out of the Bengals book. Load up the offense with a whole bunch of weapons and just shoot for the stars and aim for the moon. Because right now, you can't rely on this defense. So you're going to have to at least put up 20, maybe 25, maybe even 30 points a game just so you can stay in the game. And most importantly, you have to start winning the time of possession game. According to Team Ranked, the Steelers are 31st in time of possession at 27 minutes and 31 seconds. I'm sorry, that's not good, especially for Arthur Smith's system where they emphasize running the ball. You have to start running the ball more efficiently. You have to start converting on 3rd and 4th downs. You can't just punt it all the time. Now, if it's 4th and 2, you can convert that. But if it's 4th and 15, okay, fine, punt it. But you have to start converting on those critical downs. Otherwise, you're never going to be able to win the game. And we see that game after game after game. Aaron Rodgers can only do so much. So you have to help him out. But they tried their hardest. But it got to a point where when the Steelers were behind, Aaron Rodgers said, you know what? To hell with running the ball. We need to put this ball up in the air. We need to get down to the field as quickly as possible. And at least try to at least ease up the deficit a little bit. But that's not what happened. Because once the Packers started to get hot, there's nothing that you can do about it. And we saw that Micah Parsons was doing his thing. I mean, they had 2 and 3 people trying to stop Micah Parsons. And eventually, guess what happened? He got through. He got the sack. So I can't really be mad at the offense because they tried. But at some point, as the trade deadline is approaching, I wonder, should the team prioritize going after a wide receiver, or should they start going after defensive weapons to at least give them some hope? Because right now, that secondary is unreliable. Juan Thornhill, inconsistent. Chuck Clark shouldn't even be on the field. And I don't even know why you had Chuck Clark going after Tucker Kraft. That was a dumb move. But when we talk about the Packers, however, great job by Jordan Love. I mean, for him to put on a masterclass of how to beat a team that is just blitzing you all the time and showing you the same thing every single time, man, you capitalize off of this. And mind you, Jordan Love is doing this without a true dominant wide receiver. He doesn't have a Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase or A.J. Brown type of receiver. He has Matthew Golden, who is a rookie, Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, who's coming off of injury, Savion Williams and company, Tucker Kraft. I mean, come on. He's making do with what he do, and it's working. And this is the type of stuff that you want to see from a Super Bowl team. Let's be real here, folks. If the Packers can continue to do what they're doing offensively, there is nobody that can stop them. And I mean nobody. The fact that Jordan Love threw 20 straight passes and they were all completed passes, come on now. And another thing that we need to talk about, the Packers are really good when it comes to drafting quarterbacks. Like, when you look at their history, they have been on point when it comes to drafting their next replacement. From Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love. And I think Bart Starr, I forgot who was the replacement for Bart Starr, but don't hold me to it, okay? Just don't. But when we talk about Tucker Kraft, however, this further enhances my stance on why teams should start prioritizing going after tight ends. Because a quarterback's best friend is a tight end. And we've seen it in history that a lot of the great quarterbacks had a really good tight end. Peyton Manning and Dallas Clark, Tom Brady and Gronk, Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, Ben Roethlisberger and Heath Miller. I can continue to go down the list. Cam Newton and Greg Olsen. You got to have that really good tight end. So I think personally, there's only so much the Steelers could do against Tucker Kraft. But at the same time, we all knew that Tucker Kraft was a dog. But changing gears to the Packers defense, what is there to expect? Because we all knew that by acquiring Micah Parsons, this defense was going to go to another level. And it showed. The Steelers' offensive line was sending 2 and 3 extra people to stop Micah Parsons just because they know that once he gets a sack, everybody's going to start eating. And by doing that, as the game continued to go on and as he continued to chip away, eventually he got the sack. While at the same time opening up other opportunities for other defensive players to create pressure on Aaron Rodgers. So, I mean, there's only so much that you can say about this Packers defense because I still hold them to a very high standard. I still believe that they are a Super Bowl caliber defense, but I wonder, should they make at least one trade for a defensive player? I'm not saying they should go after, Trey Hendrickson or, Quinnen Williams or, anybody like that, but I wonder, should they make at least one small move for the defense? Well, let's talk about the Commanders and Chiefs game. But before we do that, we got some bills we got to pay. Pardon the interruption, but this is your GM, your Bag Road Dominus, here to talk about RSS.com, all right? So if you guys already don't know, I am a RSS.com affiliate, and so I just want to tell you for just a quick moment about why you should choose RSS.com. So me personally, on my journey of podcasting, I was looking at different platforms just to find the right place. And I looked here, I looked there, I looked everywhere, but I checked out RSS.com, and it was the best decision I ever made. From low prices to interactive analytics to as well as helping you with your distribution. RSS.com does it all. Not to mention, they just started a Slack channel where you can network and interact with other podcasters and even get some insightful tips on how you can increase your podcast even more. Also, RSS.com just launched their paid ads program. So now you can get paid for posting your content. Not to mention, all you have to do is just have 10 downloads and you're qualified for it. Who would want to get paid for doing something that they're passionate about doing? So head on over to RSS.com. I will be attaching my RSS affiliate link within the description. When you click on that link, I will be able to receive some compensation for it. And with that compensation, I will be able to give you guys a better product. A lot of that money will go towards upgrading the microphones, computers, new subscriptions for more analytical information that we can use for future podcasts, all of that and more. Thank you for your support, and thank you RSS.com for making me an affiliate. Now back to the good stuff. And we're back, folks. So Marcus Mariota, 30 attempts for 21 completions, 213 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks, 7.1 yards per attempt, and a 70% completion percentage. Marcus Mariota, 8 attempts for 28 rushing yards, 3.5 rushing yards per carry. Jeremy McNichols, 6 targets for 5 receptions, 64 receiving yards, and 12.8 receiving yards per reception. Patrick Mahomes, 34 attempts for 25 completions, 299 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks, 8.8 yards per attempt, and a 73.5 completion percentage. Isaiah Pacheco, 12 attempts for 58 rushing yards, 4.8 rushing yards per carry, and 2 rushes of 10 plus yards or more. Travis Kelce, 8 targets for 6 receptions, 99 receiving yards, 1 touchdown, and 16.5 receiving yards per reception. So here's a few junkie nuggets. Against zone coverage, Travis Kelce was targeted 8 times for 6 receptions, 99 yards, and 1 touchdown. The most receiving yards against zone coverage since week 3 of the 2023 season against the Chargers, where he had 103 yards against zone coverage. On throws over 4 seconds, Patrick Mahomes completed 8 of 9 passes for 149 yards and 3 touchdowns. So a couple takeaways from this game. For starters, Jacob Martin's stock continues to rise. For the past 2 or 3 games, he's actually been playing really well, creating a lot of pressure and getting sacks, which is very promising because outside of him, there's nobody else in the pass rushing room that I truly say is doing their job. Okay, Von Miller, his age is showing. Frankie Louvu, a little bit inconsistent, but not really surprised. And Javon Kinlaw, the person that they signed in free agency, he's been a ghost. But we'll save that for another topic. But Patrick Mahomes needs to slide. I get so tired of him doing that stupid, okay, I'm just going to run out at the last minute, which then causes a penalty. Stop doing that. And the refs, they need to stop calling that. Because he's purposely doing it. Because he knows when he do it, they're going to give him that call. Stop it. We all know that all it takes is just one person to crack him one good time. One good time. And he'll never run again. And I'm not wishing anything on Patrick Mahomes. But you are setting yourself up for failure because it's going to take that one defense and going to say, you know what? He's about to run. I'm going to meet you halfway. Smack. The Commanders' defense needs a youth movement. Sure, you have a few players that, still in their prime and whatnot, but for the majority, this defense is old. And I understand they were productive last season, but that's last season. This is now. I should not be seeing Bobby Wagner trying to chase down somebody like how he used to play with the Seahawks. Somebody needs to put some fresh blood on this defense. Now, Jeremy Reeves, he was doing his thing. He was everywhere on the field, making tackles, pass breakups, you name it. He was doing his thing, and that's actually great. But he can only do so much. Jacob Martin can only do so much. You pay X amount of dollars to Von Miller, and he hasn't really shown anything. People got to step up. That's the only way that you can beat someone like a Patrick Mahomes. That pass rush needs to be on 10 from the first quarter to the last quarter. And the Chiefs are back, folks. I know it took them a while. I know things looked a little bit shaky, but they're back. Now the question is, what are they going to do at the trade deadline? Are they going to make an addition for the offense or the defense? Because me personally, I feel like they should go after a running back. I think getting someone like a Breece Hall would be great. Give up that second or third round pick. Let's go. Because right now you have to start stacking up wins. The Broncos are going to be a problem. The Chargers are going to be a problem. The Colts are going to be a problem. If you want one of those high seeds, you're going to have to fight for it. And you need the weapons to be able to do it. So whoever the GM is, get on the phone and get Breece Hall right now. And I'm not saying this because I'm rooting for the Chiefs. I do not like the Chiefs at all. But they got to do something, all right? I know that Diana Rossini said this morning that the Commanders are looking for pass rushers. But the problem is there's not a lot of pass rushers available right now. And any of the pass rushers that are available, the asking price is too high. So why would I give up a second or possibly first round pick for a pass rusher that's most likely going to be a free agent next year? It's pointless. This is what I will say. I feel like the Commanders have been solved. And let me explain. I feel like their strategy last year caught a lot of people off guard and it was really productive. But I feel like now that everybody has seen their cadences and the things they like to do, I feel like they've been solved on both sides of the ball. So at some point, Cliff Kingsbury, is there another level to your bag? Dan Quinn, is there another level to your bag? Because you guys have to present something different. Because this could have been a close game. You had 2 takeaways from Patrick Mahomes. You should have tried to at least convert those takeaways into points. That's the type of game that you're going to have to play when you're facing someone like a Patrick Mahomes. But when we talk about the Chiefs, however, they needed this. They needed to continue to stack up those small wins just so they can get back into the swing of things. Because prior to this point, there were a lot of people that were saying, is the Chiefs over with? Has the dynasty collapsed? What are they going to do now? But clearly they're back on straight street and they're ready to go to another Super Bowl because we all know that's probably going to happen. Unless the Broncos or the Texans or the Chargers or the Ravens or the Colts, because we'll probably get the number 1 seed. You know what? Forget about it. We're not going to talk about that, all right? We're going to talk about trades. So former Titans cornerback Roger McCreary head to the Rams. So the Rams receive a 2026 conditional 6th round pick in Roger McCreary, while the Titans receive a 2026 conditional 5th round pick. Honestly, I think this is a good move. Low risk, high reward, not to mention he's going to be a free agent after this season, so it's only a seasonal rental without having to give up a lot to get him. Cornerback was a problem for the Rams, and they've been trying to address it. But when we look at his stats from this season so far, 33 tackles, 1 sack, he was targeted 25 times and allowed 22 receptions for 209 yards, 2 touchdowns, and has 1 pick so far. He's a productive corner. It's just the Titans are having a fire sale. That's it. So Kyle Duggar heads to Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh receives a 2026 conditional 7th round pick, and Kyle Duggar, of course, while the Patriots receive a 2026 6th round pick. Again, low risk, high reward. The Steelers needed a safety with Deshaun Elliott going down and possibly being out for the season, so why go after somebody that's going to be super expensive when you can get someone like Kyle Duggar? The Patriots agreed to pay out the majority of his contract. And they've been trying to get rid of him for almost 2 years now. So it's a win-win situation. Well, only time will tell because he's most likely going to play on Sunday. But we're not going to talk about that, all right? Keon White, former pass rusher for the Patriots, heads to the 49ers. So New England receives a 2026 6th round pick, while San Francisco receives a 2026 7th round pick in Keon White. Now, we all know that the 49ers needed a pass rusher. By getting someone like a Keon White, I feel like he may work in their system a little bit better than what Mike Vrabel is doing. The Patriots are trying to get rid of all of Bill Belichick's draft picks. They want all of them gone. They don't want no blemishes of Bill Belichick to ever emerge in that building, okay? But again, low risk, high reward. There's a lot of upside with Keon White's game, but I think he hasn't had the opportunity to really show it with the Patriots. But I think going to the 49ers, he may be able to do it. Michael Carter II, cornerback, he heads to Philly. And so Philly receives, of course, Michael Carter and a 2027 7th round pick, while the Jets receive John Mechie and a 2027 6th round pick. Low risk, high reward. The Eagles needed a corner, and Michael Carter is one of the better slot corners in the league, while at the same time giving an opportunity for someone like John Mechie to hit the field. Because, I mean, outside of Garrett Wilson, who else can you say is a reliable receiving option for the Jets? Just being honest here. Now, do I think there's going to be bigger trades like how they have been within the past few years? No. And the reason why I say that is because there's more buyers than sellers this season. Meaning that any player that is available right now, the asking price is high. If I'm not mistaken, somebody said that the Dolphins want a 2nd round pick for Jalen Phillips. The Jets want a 3rd round pick for Breece Hall. The Jets aren't really taking any legitimate offers for Quentin Williams. Like, these are the type of things that are being put out that if you're a GM, you're just like, yo, I don't want to make that trade. Even if it is a need, I don't want to make that trade because I'm not willing to give up all this compensation for a half a season rental. Now, if it's something like the trades, like I just said, like Kyle Duggar going to Pittsburgh or Michael Carter going to the Eagles, where you're giving up, day 3 or day 4 picks, okay, fine, whatever. But I'm not giving up a 2nd round pick for somebody that's going to be a free agent next year. I'm not doing that. Even when you look at receivers, there's not a lot of receiver options right now. And the main one that everybody is going after is either Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, Brandon Cooks, or Jacoby Myers. But the problem is, Jacoby Myers is looking for money. And the Raiders want a 2nd round pick. So I'm going to have to give up a 2nd round pick, and I'm going to have to pay you $20+ million a year. I don't know about that. I'll take my chances in free agency. But let's end this episode with some college football. So for those who don't know, former Notre Dame and LSU head coach Brian Kelly has been fired. So he spent 4 seasons with them, and within those 4 seasons, he was 34-14 and won an SEC West Division title in his first year, according to Pete Thamel and Max Olson of ESPN. Now, he signed a 10-year deal that included $95 million in salary and is 90% guaranteed, but is owed $54 million in buyout money, according to Pete Thamel and Max Olson of ESPN. Now, this is what former LSU AD Scott Woodward had to say about this, and I quote, "We had high hopes that he would lead us to multiple SEC and national championships during his time in Baton Rouge. Ultimately, the success at the level that LSU demands simply did not materialize, and I made the decision to make a change after last night's game. I am grateful for the ongoing consultations and support of the LSU Board of Supervisors and interim president Matt Lee in this decision. We wish Coach Kelly and his family the very best in their future endeavors. We will continue to negotiate his separation and will work toward a path that is better for both parties. As a proud alum and as the current caretaker of our athletics program, I will not compromise in our pursuit of excellence, and we will not lower our standards. I continue to believe that LSU is the best football program in America, and that our head coach position is among the best considering our investment, our ability to attract and retain talent, our unbelievable fans, and our institutional and statewide commitment to and love for LSU football," end quote. Am I surprised that Brian Kelly got fired the way that he got fired? No. Because let's be honest, LSU has a standard, and their standard is winning. And when you're not winning, you're gone. When you look at their predecessors, Nick Saban from 2000 to 2004, Les Miles from 2005 to 2010, from Ed Ogeron from 2016 to 2021. What is the one thing that they all have in common? They've won a national championship. Brian Kelly hasn't. And when you can't meet that standard, you got to go. I don't care what you did at this school and that school. I don't care who you recruited. It don't mean a ding darn thing if you don't win a national championship. But another part to this situation that's not being talked about is The NIL is putting more pressure on head coaches to start winning championships sooner. So instead of a head coach winning a national championship, I don't know, 5 or 10 or 15 years into their head coaching tenure with a particular university, you got to win within the first 3 to 5 years. And if you're not, well, then you're gone. There was a point in time where if Ryan Day didn't win the national championship, oh, he was going to get fired. So there is a higher degree of expectations for any and all college football head coaches because you're making almost $100 million and you have nothing to show for it. That's like flushing $100 million down the drain every season. So I think when you have a mixture of that and how he handled himself with his personnel and players, I think not a lot of people like Brian Kelly. Like his first night with LSU, he wanted to talk in a country accent. He wanted to talk like he's from the dirty South. Brother, you are from the North. Talk like you're normal, okay? Why are you talking like you got some gum stuck in the back of your mouth? Stop it. But with Brian Kelly getting fired, this now adds to a growing list of very notable college football head coaches that got fired this season. So far, you have Billy Napier, Mike Gundy, James Franklin, Deshaun Foster, Sam Pittman, Brent Pry, Jay Norvell, Troy Taylor, and now Brian Kelly. Again, if you're not producing, you're gone. And I think another thing we have to talk about, and this just isn't for Brian Kelly, but this is college football as a whole. College athletics relies on the success of the football team. Let me break it down. When we look at Alabama, correct? We all know that if Alabama wasn't winning, then all the other athletic teams wouldn't be surviving because they rely on who? Alabama to be the cash cow. That's going to be the thing that everyone's going to put their money towards. It's the same thing with LSU. Now, granted, their women's basketball team is ferocious, but what does everybody go to LSU for? The football team. So when the football team is successful, guess what? There's going to be a trickle-down effect to all the other athletic teams, both men and women. And so when the team isn't winning, national championships specifically, guess what? That's going to have a direct impact on all the other teams. NIL can only go so far. The college has to pick up the rest of the tab. You got to pay for hotel rooms, transportation, guests, and all these different things. Like, that stuff costs. But guess what? It's an easier cost to deal with if the football team is super successful. But with this move, former LSU AD Scott Woodward also got fired as well. Now, this is what Executive Deputy Athletic Director Verge Osbury said about the firing of Scott Woodward, and I quote, "We thank Scott for the last 6 years of service as athletic director. He's had a lot of success at LSU, and we wish him nothing but the best in the future. Our focus now is moving the athletic department forward and best positioning LSU to achieve its full potential," end quote. Now, this is what Scott Woodward had to say, and I quote, "Others can recap or opine on my tenure and on my decisions over the last 6 years as director of athletics, but I will not. Rather, I will focus on the absolute joy that LSU athletics brings to our state's residents and to the Baton Rouge community. I will cherish the incredible relationships I have built within the university community and beyond our campus borders. And I will finally remember the national and SEC championships for the joy that they brought to our student athletes, coaches, staff, campus community, and other incredible fans. Our university will always hold a special place in my heart, and I will never be too far from LSU," end quote. So Scott Woodward was the LSU director since 2019. Now, during that time, he hired Kim Mulkey and won national championships in both basketball and football. But we all know since the firing of Brian Kelly, there's been a lot of back and forth between him and the Louisiana governor on who's going to have the power to make the decision on the next hire for LSU. Now, I know the governor did say that Scott Woodward was going to make that decision, but what went from that to, oh, now he's fired? It'll be one thing if he wasn't doing his job. Then it's like, okay, you got to go. But he's been successful. The women's basketball team just won a championship 2 years ago. Does that not hold any weight? Clearly it doesn't. But if I have my tinfoil hat on, my guess is because Scott Woodward hired Brian Kelly, they were just like, you know what? You messed up on this hire. You're not going to do this no more. And Scott Woodward probably said, you know what? Look at my track record. I've actually been really successful since I've been the AD of LSU. And so they probably had a back and forth. And then the Louisiana governor was like, you know what? You're gone. And that's that. But I'm going to end this episode here. If you guys like what you're listening, please make sure you guys download the episodes, all right? Leave a 5-star review on anywhere and everywhere that you get your podcasts, okay? We are available on Apple Podcasts. We're available on Spotify. And we're also available on a few other places, all right? If you go on rss.com, Football Junkies Podcast, there's a much broader selection of podcasting platforms that we're available on, okay? Now, for my YouTube people, like, share, subscribe, turn that notification bell on, leave a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on anything and everything that I have talked in this episode, all right? You can find us on YouTube at Football Junkies Pod, all right? Football Junkies Pod. And when you go on our YouTube, we have a link tree. When you click on that link tree, it'll take you to anywhere and everywhere that we have Football Junkies content, all right? Now, for my TikTok people, Football Junkies Pod, all right? Football Junkies Pod. Whenever I make the post announcing of the episode dropping, all you have to do is click the link in my bio and it'll take you directly to our YouTube page where the episode will be available on, okay? Unfortunately, I cannot hyperlink the episode if you are audio listeners, so the only way that I can mitigate that is if I just tell you that if you just click on the link in my bio, it'll just take you to the YouTube, all right? Now for my Instagram people, Football_Junkies Pod, all right? Football_Junkies Pod. Junkies Pod is not what? It is together, not spaced, okay? It is together, not spaced. Football_Junkies Pod, all right? You can follow me on X at GMKale, all right? GMKale, Kaile, as well as on Blue Sky, GMKale, GMKaile. Also, I forgot to tell you guys this. We hit 900 downloads a couple days ago, which means we're only 100 downloads away from hitting 1,000. If we can hit 1,000 downloads before the year ends out, that would be amazing, guys. But I think we can do it, all right? So, as always, I hope I gave you guys the fix that you guys need. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys so much. Stay tuned. Gut check time will be coming out next week. It will be coming out next week after the trade deadline, okay? So, as always, I love you guys. I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you guys so much for listening to the Football Junkies podcast. I love each and every one of you. I appreciate each and every one of you. And this is your GM Kale signing out. Peace and love. Later. Breaking news. The Ravens are trading Jaire Alexander to the Eagles. So, the Ravens are sending Jaire and a 2027 7th round pick to the Eagles in exchange for a 2026 6th round pick. So, this is a really good move for the Eagles. Low risk, high reward. We know that the Ravens were stashing Jaire since the summer because they believe that by getting Jaire, he would provide a different oomph to that secondary that's very much needed. And so he was a healthy scratch for the last 2 games. And my guess is he probably went to the Ravens and said, trade me. You guys aren't going to play me? Then just trade me. Now with the Eagles, however, this is a great move because you get a proven corner for little to nothing. I mean, who wouldn't want that? So now your cornerback woes have essentially been completed. I mean, you have Michael Carter, you have Quinyon Mitchell, and you have Jaire. I think that's good. Not to mention, you also have Cooper DeJean, who sometimes he'll play in the nickel as well. Man, oh man. How we doing his thing, folks? We're going to talk more about this in the next episode with Gut Check Time, all right? So, as always, I love you guys. I appreciate you guys so much. Peace and love. Later.